Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first mega panel discussion for the day at the Economic Times Future Forward Southeast Asia Summit 2022. By now, we know how it's not just important to have your workforce right in front of your eyes to have a better productivity rate. A tiny virus made us realize this. But now that we know the perks of having diverse talent from any part of the world, business leaders are redesigning their agendas to create a sustainable future for their organization. In this mega panel today, our leaders will discuss the building blocks that are required for creating a borderless workforce who can thrive and contribute to their fullest potential to meet the expectations and the ultimate vision of the organization. And please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists for today. First up, we have with us Mofuluwaso Levbare, Culture and People Lead, Woolsworth Group. She's an HR thought leader and executive coach for Fortune 500 companies and has worked closely with CEOs and lead teams to create a shared culture of purpose and possibilities that deliver extraordinary teams and exceptional results. Next up, we have with us Hasham Mohammed, Senior Human Resources Business Partner, APAC Adobe. With over 13 years of work experience, Hasham's passion lies in design thinking and innovation. And next we have Nolida Azmi, Group Chief People Officer, Axiata, where she is driving the group's people strategy in line with Axiata's vision of becoming the next generation digital champion. And finally, to moderate this session, we have with us Shweta Shukla, founder of the Culturegram, who strives to create space for real stories to be told and finding unique ways to collaborate with people and businesses as they build culture, grow leaders, and build an organization with long-term value. Welcome, leaders. It is such a pleasure to host you all today. And a quick hygiene check for our audience. Please share your aha moments from the sessions and let us know your key takeaways from this panel discussion in the chat section. Also, do share your learnings on social media as well by using the hashtag #ETFutureForward Southeast Asia. And now, without any further ado, let me invite Shweta to take over the discussion. Shweta, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you now.
Thank you so much, Yasmin, and thank you for setting the context of this really thoughtful and interesting subject. And I'm super excited to be moderating this panel. And we have three wonderful panelists right here with us who are going to hopefully give you all the insights you're looking for. We'll also have a little bit of fun, I'm telling you. But I think we'll learn in the process as we go through this. Without much further ado, You've already learned who's on the panel, but I'm going to get them to say a few words about what excites them about this topic and also a small fun fact about themselves. So I'll start with Hasham. Hasham, over to you. What does this whole topic mean to you personally, and a little bit about a fun fact about yourself?
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you for having me on this panel. I was really looking forward to this conversation. I introduce myself first. I work in the capacity of senior HR business partner with Adobe, managing the services business across the region in APAC and Japan. And I've been with the organization for close to 5 years now. And before that, I've worked for other product and services organizations in India and in Southeast Asia. Now, coming to this topic, I think it's very close to my heart. I'm one of those people who was very fortunate to move borders. I relocated from Bangalore, India to Sydney in February 2020, just before the pandemic kind of spread its wings and international borders were closed down. So having experienced it myself and how it impacted my family and everyone around me, as an HR leader, it kind of made me even more closer to my employees to think about how do we solve for problems around the new norm of hybrid working. So that's the reason I was really looking forward to this conversation. And fun fact about me, I come from the southern part of India, Hyderabad. And as the famous saying goes, food brings people closer. No matter the occasion, it is a sad event, an exciting one. Biryani solves the problem for me. And for those of you who don't know what biryani is, it's a rice dish made up of meat and rice cooked together with a lot of spices. So biryani is the way to go for me. Back to you, Shweta.
Thank you so much, Hasham. And there is so much that food brings us together. It really makes a borderless culture, right? That's fantastic. And thank you for also sharing what sort of really appeals to you very personally and professionally in this subject. I'm going to go over to Ollie, who will share a few things about this. Ollie, do you want to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Shweta. Really excited to be here, especially with the three of you on screen as well. I lead the people function in Axiata Group. It's more of a regional company. And really interesting is that, through our 7 entities, we're actually in 11 countries, but it's always in the much more frontier and emerging markets. And therefore, it presents some challenges. But I think with that comes greater opportunities on how we leverage on that. So that's my function across. And I really thought that this was really a very exciting and a relevant topic, because during this period, as you know, the telecommunication industry was just all the time on. There was so much dependency. And what has happened is that during that session, the borderless equation became so much more important. So I really feel this is really something that resonates the way that Axiata and its companies are operating today, and we'll share later more. And a fun fact about me is I have a fear of feathers. I was trying to find something unknown fact. It's one of those things, those animals crossed my head when I was 7 years old. So it's a fear. Somebody has a fear of things. I have fear of feathered animals. I don't eat chicken. And that's about me, Shweta.
That is truly, truly super interesting. Like I said, no chicken served on this panel. I think what is also very inspiring to see is how you're leading the charter at Axiata, which is growing across multiple countries, multiple regions, and everything that goes with it. So look forward to hearing more from you on that. And over to Fofo. We would love to get a small intro, fun fact, and what this topic means to you.
The beauty of going last is I can say, as the other panelists have said. So it's wonderful to be here, and thank you for having me. My name is Mufulu Ashoilevare. I'm called Fofo for short. I'm Nigerian by birth, but I consider myself a global citizen at heart. And that's because I have over 20 years career experience spanning across different sectors and working and living across different continents. This topic was quite relevant to me, just like Hasham had mentioned, because I've worked and lived in 5 continents. So when we're talking borderless, I think that resonates a lot with me as well. So I look forward to this conversation and sharing some of the changes, either in the workplace, the organizations I've worked with, and even personally, what that has meant to my HR career as a profession. I have a healthy appetite for chocolate cake. And I was just telling my teenage son this morning that I can brag that I had my first podcast when I was 5. So we called it radio in those days, but now I can brag and say it was a podcast. That's it from me.
Fantastic. That's an amazing fun fact. We're going to go look for that podcast right after this panel. And I'm sure we're going to find amazing fun facts, over there and much more. We're really excited to hear from your global career and all the learnings you've had, Popo. Thank you so much for joining us. And so with this wonderful panel, the next 30 to 40 minutes is going to be all about learning, sharing, asking, and really hoping that, at the end of it, it leaves us with some things that we can go and reflect both professionally and personally. And I'm going to open it up with Hasham. And the question that I had for Hasham, he and I got a chance to connect a little bit, sort of jive a little bit on the topic. And one of the things that, Hasham had shared was, how some of the assumptions around organization design and what he drove in his organization and even across got really challenged and changed the way the organization thought about design and structure. So I'd really love to bring you in, Hasham, to talk a little bit about that and also all your learnings that went along with it.
Sure, Shweta. Thank you for that. And I'd like to start off by acknowledging this panel of HR leaders and all the other HR and business leaders who are tuning in today. I think in the last 3 years, the magnitude of change that we've been able to manage at an organizational, cultural, and even operational level has been tremendous, and usually it takes a decade for us to kind of achieve that an outcome. But hats off to all of us, and thank you for managing all that while taking care of yourself and your family's health. Thank you. And with that acknowledgement, I also want to answer this question with a slight input on Adobe's business. Adobe is a digital media and marketing organization, and we've been around for quite many years. We've been always known as the Photoshop company, but Adobe's business spans across digital marketing as well as document cloud. Now, what we do as an organization, the products and solutions actually impact both our individual artists as well as global organizations in helping create experiences where people are coming together to buy, purchase, as well as have that kind of experience while interacting online. The reason I'm talking about this essentially is while we're changing the world through digital experiences, which is a vision, we're also undergoing a lot of change internally very frequently. Like I've spent close to 5 years with the organization now, and the main highlight for me is as a business partner, helping business manage change. So while we're doing this change, we've always looked at org design being front and center. Now, with the pandemic, as all you know, the changes got accelerated to manifold. It was like change on steroids. How can we continue helping business sustain business? And what we found was our customers were reevaluating their priorities because the market was moving in a different direction. And what it meant for us was internally, can we also do an exercise of reprioritization across our businesses? And with reprioritization, of course, you need to think about how is your global workforce spread across? Now, Adobe has 24,000 employees globally. Think about this situation, like I'm just exaggerating it to make it simple. On a Friday evening, all your employees pick up their laptops and computers, personal belongings, move out from office, and next Monday onwards, all of them are working behind a screen. It was a huge change for us. And when we looked at business priorities, those have changed as well. Now, most important of all, while these changes were happening in the market and internally from a business perspective, employee well-being was our top of the mind priority for the organization. Like, how can we balance employee well-being while balancing business priorities? I think that's where org design helped us to be able to really look at, okay, where are the business priorities moving, and how can we align our people goals and people's strategies towards those business goals, and look at our spans and layers, think about the distribution of workforce around contractors versus full-time employees, and think about what's best for the organization and our people at this time. I think that's where org design bolstered our people strategy across the team. And most important of all, like we all know, this experience was like not from a playbook. And Adobe's philosophy was test, learn, and then iterate. So that's what we continue to do even now. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Hasham. And I'm going to come back to you a little bit later on the same subject about what was the most radical decision you'd had to make. But before that, I'll come back to Ollie. And Ollie, I know you shared a little bit about your experience of managing a very diverse workforce, which is spread across multiple countries, and you're driving common values across, right? But it comes with some challenges. It comes with some nuances, right? So I'd love to hear from you as an HR leader. What were some of those challenges that you have to navigate while creating and working with this borderless workforce, which is being driven by some common goals and values?
You know, Shweta, this is really as going back to what we said, the challenges present such a huge opportunity to shift the way we work and the way we serve our customers and other stakeholders. And building on from what Hasham was saying on the org design and org development, I saw that it impacted, how the environments that we are in. As I mentioned, some of these are frontier markets and emerging markets. And there is a reality when you're operating in some of these markets. There are labor laws, there are regulations, as well as societal development and political, right? So some of the countries that we operate has a higher, perhaps, union representation and collective agreements. So when jobs change, responsibilities sort of morph, and organizational structures gets reconfigured. What are the implications? We need to be a bit more careful so that we don't get into a very gray area that could be construed as constructive dismissal or job resizing. So I need to be a little bit more careful in this market. So that's on the external market. And we know that these days, and then we talk about the employee themselves, our own people, a job reconfiguration, the new generations want fulfillment, job content. As you reconfigure and distribute work across the globe, how you ensure the content is still there, fulfillment is there, that it doesn't attribute to this great resignation, great shuffle, you name it. I believe most of us are experiencing it. And the third element is actually about the people managers. Are they effectively managing all these people in these distributed forces? We all talk about it, but different organizations have different organizational maturity in terms of either the employees' capability or the manager's capability. What I wanted to share is, while there's a lot of challenges, one of the things that I take pride that Axiata does, and we are every telco wants to be digital. We want to build unicorns, and we are also in the infrastructure. So how do we bring this together? We have this thing called collective brain. I love this term because it really doesn't talk about, oh, I'm headquarters, so I have the superior knowledge, but really leveraging on who has the best knowledge to actually solution programs, networking, spectrum, whatever it is that we're doing. And then also the reward system is also addressed within this structure. I believe that a borderless organization needs this operating model where we are able to leverage on the capabilities, but also give some job security, because I think for us, at least in this part of the world or the markets we're going, and for some of the countries we operate in, there's even political upheaval. How do we help and continue to give that? So those are some of the challenges, but I believe we have more fluid operating models to bring and really talk about that hyper collaboration and agile, which we can talk later much more, Shweta.
Sure. Ollie, I mean, you've shared a number of amazing concepts in there around people management, around collective wisdom. I'd love to, I think we need another panel to talk about all of those, but I'll definitely come back to a few of those areas, especially around the role of leaders in bringing this to life. So I have a question for all of you later. Kicking it off with Fofo. Fofo, you have, sort of worked across some incredible organizations with a global career, and you've seen the idea of the borderless workforce perhaps grow over time. And somehow it got accelerated with the pandemic, right? Because a lot of things that were happening just got accelerated. And so share with us a little bit about your experiences as an HR leader in terms of the learnings you've had as you've seen this concept grow right in front of your eyes, right? And what changed significantly, and what were some of the things that you really had to put in action?
Absolutely. And you started by saying the pandemic has really fast-tracked, because remote working has always been there. It's just what happened is the pandemic kind of fast-tracked that in many sectors and in many organizations. I remember my first expatriate assignment was maybe almost 15, 16 years ago. And it wasn't something very common within my parts of the world where I came from at that time. And people thought I was crazy. Why would you uproot yourself from the only home you've known and the whole family you've known, and you're going to a place, what's it called? Where is the country? And many organizations, also the cost of expatriation, having to do cultural intelligence, onboarding, there's so many things that come with it. But now many people are realizing that things have changed. So if I think of the organizations that I work for now and the one I've worked with, some of the things that we had to learn during this period is, number one, remote working is possible. I remember when I got to Australia and New Zealand, one of the first things we wanted to do was to test our business contingency plans, the BCPs. And we wanted to test loss of sight and loss of people. What will happen if we don't have critical people and we don't have the office we work in? Now, coincidentally, we were going to send everyone on a 2 weeks offsite. And I had worked on policies that were going to help to enable people to be able to work from home or work from hotels, because we're going to hide a few critical positions. Now, the bottom line is we never came back to the office, because before the end of those 2 weeks, this COVID we had been hearing about came in, and, the whole country was shut down. But we had started it a little bit earlier, and it was already helping with people trying to see, is it even possible? So when you look at lessons we've learned, number one, we can work remotely and be productive doing so. That's one fixed mindset that I believe many leaders have had to shake off, having to compare performance with presence. So if I'm not in the office, what does that mean? Number two, not all jobs can be done remotely. is another thing we're learning, because applying also one size fits all, it's also not working in all cases, especially if you have frontline employees or you have a job where people have to be there. Many doctors till now cannot operate remotely, right? Number three, we found out that leaders have different tolerance levels when it comes to adapting to change. I would say as an HR partner, it's one of the things that I had to coach my leaders with, because some of them embraced being digital and some are still struggling. They want everybody back in the office right now. Okay. So that's one thing we found out. Also, employees have options to work for. I think that's another thing that we realized. Ollie was talking about the great resignation and the great attraction, whatever we want to call it. The point is, many people are realizing that the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is no longer a ladder, it's a circle. It's a circle where I'm not just waiting for my basic needs before I move to social and security. It's everything combined. I want security, I want safety, I want to be recognized at work, and I want to have a meaningful job that gives me purpose. So when we start to realize that these things have come together, it creates a different mindset. And what have we had to adapt to? Embracing technology. Number one, embracing technology, because it's not going anywhere. We know that digital and technology is here to stay. Another thing we improved at my workplace is improving the dashboards for communication, improving, the employee apps that we have. We currently also just revamped the EVP and the branding for the company, just helping people identify with, why should I get up and go to work every morning when I can sit in bed and just launch my own e-commerce business, and before you know it, TikTok makes me a millionaire? Why would I get up and do it? So those are some of the things that we're finding out. The government also working together with them is something we found very helpful, because at some point, with the borders closed, here in Australia was closed for a long period of time. That affected migration of other students, that affected migration of workers. And so you had to make do with what you had in the country. And to do that, you have to make sure you're collaborating, strategic alliances, getting involved with people, finding out where the skills are missing and how can we collaborate. It made us go back to the drawing board and say, what is our strategy? What do we want to be known for? What are we competent in? And where do we see the threats? So every business, doing the SWOT analysis, trying to understand your strengths, your opportunities, the threats that are coming, or the threats you have to deal with, and what are the partners, or who are the partners you can form strategic alliances with. Those are some of the things that we've learned, and we're still learning in the process.
Yeah. Great, thank you for sharing that. Obviously, it's a really interesting thing that something that none of us anticipated is going to happen in our lifetime happened, and it left us with so much to think about, so much to do, and I'm sure this is going to be a tremendous journey for all of us in what we do. And one thing that is also a big part of the discussion today is sustainability, and how do we tie that up with the borderless workforce? There are some things that come to mind, and unfortunately, sustainability can sometimes be a buzzword, right? People are talking about it, but you don't know what the outcomes are. And so I'd love for all of you to unpack this a little bit for me as to how do you tie these two concepts, and how are you really seeing this come alive in the organizations that you're running yourself, or what you're seeing around you. And maybe I'll start with Hasham to share a little bit about that.
Sure, Shweta. I think as an organization, our HR team, we call ourselves the team of employee experience. It's about creating that experience for employees. And to what I reflected earlier, which is Adobe as an organization wants to create digital experiences. So how can we do that for our employees? And even before the pandemic hit, Adobe implemented some of our products internally with our own processes, like being that customer zero for Adobe itself. For example, our onboarding process, as well as our vendor management process, our product Adobe Sign, which kind of creates a floating experience to be able to go paperless and have your entire workflow of approvals, as well as making sure everything from a compliance perspective is taken care of, including offer letters and every aspect of where the papers move. So we've been able to do that beforehand and saw a lot of benefits doing that, both from a sustainability perspective, going paperless, plus being able to create that experience. With the advent of pandemic, what we also did was looked at ways, how can we still continue creating that experience while still having that sustainability in mind, which is meeting where our employees are. Now, to Fofo's point of view, like I've been working in Sydney for the last 2 years, and managing the services business, the biggest challenge was there's no talent available in specific areas, or you need to work with what you have. So can we think about looking at opportunities to engage with talent where they currently are, and being able to create opportunities for people to work for us, as well as look at how do we bridge the gap in terms of our talent needs on the ground. And more recently, when it comes to mobility of talent, with borders opening up, we saw a huge inflow of talent across the APAC and Japan region. Now, some simple things in terms of global mobility is giving employees visibility on the sustainability aspect of each of the benefits that they're getting as a part of global mobility. And can we propose a simple solution as like moving your goods, like your household goods through a ship requires this much effort? Can we instead replace that with an allowance for you in local markets so that you can buy your household goods, which is a win-win for both? Such kind of solutions have helped us achieve a lot more in terms of what we were already doing. And more importantly, looking at, can we onboard some vendors who also currently measure and track sustainability parameters? Those are a few aspects in which Adobe is making efforts towards creating a sustainable environment while not deviating from its overall vision of creating great experiences for employees.
Great. No, thank you. And I think we can't do it alone. We have to have partners who believe in the philosophy and bring them on board. And it's quite fascinating. Ollie, over to you. I'd love to hear your perspective on the same thing.
It's really interesting how sustainability, like you said, so that we're not whitewashing and we just say everything is sustainability, right? One of the greatest things that I feel that the Borderless or the pandemic has done is that it has really enhanced how does it impact the business that we deliver to our clients. For example, we build towers, right? And therefore, do you use bamboo towers, and which areas do you go? And I think those are key in terms of the solutions that we give to the customers, to our clients, but also in terms of our sustainable workforce, right? I mean, everybody, for the most part, most organizations are really trying to embrace hybrid, though there is this big fear that some organizations know, I'm going to go 2 days minimum, 3 days, and some are just saying, I'm going to give you the greatest workspace, you come back 5 days. So there's still a debate happening there. But I think with people having to be able to work hybrid, you are able to actually not have to drive every day. And organizations are also looking at, some organizations still give vehicle allowances, transport allowances. Can we therefore skew it such that we promote a little bit more of public transport, of hybrid cars for those who can afford it? All those things are going to matter. I wanted to bring up an experience I had with a multinational bank previously, because you can say you're going digital. And when you're in the L&D and your partners come and give you a booklet, you're like, seriously? Help me with it. So what that organization did was they actually did a name and shame about how many trees you're killing. So first they went by division. Then they went by the senior leadership and their secretary, because sometimes it says, okay, I won't print, but I'll get because to bring, I don't think awareness is adequate enough these days. You really need to do something. So I was quite happy this year we reconfigured our sustainability board to become a more encompassing, taking the E and S and G at the board level with representatives from the organizations, and taking something that we have put on what we call our 4 Ps previously in 2015 and upgrading it, including this borderless workforce, the planet, purpose, people. But we also said process is important because it's the process that sometimes generates simple things. And the one thing I wanted to bring in is, with the hybrid working, most organizations look at reducing real estate. So they're shaping out everything, right? So let's take the opportunity of making that workplace transformation more green, use energy saving, many things that you can do that it's not just about putting the bean bags and the pool table, but how do you drive the sustainability agenda every day? Do an indoor plant and have salad for lunch. I don't mean to be facetious, but little things add up. So sustainability in the change ways of working is a very key part. And I think that's a key element of talent attraction. If organizations cannot answer purpose, sustainability, and DEI, I don't think we're going to get the talents that we want for the future.
That's great. And you're therefore attracting the right set of people, right, Ollie? I think that's the thing, that people who care about those things. So that's great. No, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Fofo, over to you.
Yeah, I'll probably just add, if I think of the concept you mentioned, talking about people, processes, products and services, and then the planet. One thing you find out is with a younger generation, for example, they're not just looking for a company that can give them a big salary. They're checking what are your social causes? Is your product harmful to the environment? You go on things like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, all the social media platforms, you can read feedback that people feel about companies, and it's helping them to shape their decisions on whether they want to work for the company or not. So whether we like it or not is something that we would all have to look into at some point if we're not already doing that now. In terms of people, if you look at borderlessness, knowledge transfer is one that we're currently discussing. When you have people who are moving out, especially the older generation who are moving out from the workforce and starting their own different new career paths, how are we making sure that we're transferring that illicit knowledge properly? How do we keep the association with alumni networks to help with sustainability of certain things when it comes to people development? When you look at products, most of the conversations are around how are we making sure that even the supplier who is supplying some of the raw materials, where are they manufacturing it from? How are they treating their people? How can we use that in a sustainable way? So I think that borderlessness and sustainability, they go hand in hand. From a people standpoint, the more you expand your organization, the more you're thinking, are we culture fit, or are we embracing new cultures? How are we making sure that we're bringing some of that into our thinking? And when we look at products, like I mentioned, I work in the retail space now, and it's all about making sure that we give consumers the products they love. But I don't want to give you something harmful. So how much of the production am I taking care of? How fast can I get it to you, even when there is a lockdown? And who can I partner with to make sure that you're getting it at your doorstep? We now know apps. You can order anything you want from inside your house and it gets to you, even fresh vegetables. How do I make sure you get that in a way that is sustainable? I think those are some of the things I would add to the conversation. There's a lot that Hasham and Ollie have mentioned, but it's a conversation that should continue. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a campaign. It's not something that we're doing for the sake of doing it. We must understand that it adds meaning and purpose to life.
Right. No, thanks, Fofo. And I think one of the things that you talked about, the fact that this is an ongoing conversation where there has to be a lot of innovation involved, right? And that will require partnerships from a number of different sectors coming together. In fact, this is one of those kind of problems that has to be truly solved in a borderless way. No one country will have all the solutions, right? So I think this is a great example of how sustainability and borderless workforce and culture really culminate. It's fascinating. I can go on talking, and I'd love to get all of you to continue to talk for the next 1 hour, but I have a feeling that the watch is looking at me. So I'm going to do something clever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to combine a few questions because I do want to get to a couple of points, but I'll bring them together. One of the ideas of getting this right, or at least starting the journey in the right way in building this borderless workforce, is not just putting the policies in place or the practices, and so to speak, but also around the culture of the organization, how leaders behave, and how inclusion is also a part of it, right? So there are different aspects. I know this is a fairly big and broad question, but I fundamentally believe that to do anything well, it's not just the structure of the process. There is a cultural element to it. And I'd love for all of you to talk a little bit about what are the kind of things an organization, a leadership team, people managers, HR leaders need to keep in mind to drive this, right? And you can pick different elements as you think about it. Maybe I'll start with you again, Fofo. Maybe you can kick us off in this, and then we'll go from there.
All right. We always say that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and extra desserts, because I like chocolate cake, right? So whether we like it or not, even if we come up with big strategies, it's something I always have at the back of my mind. And as leaders, some of the things we talked about, leaders have to be agile, being quick to adapt, being inclusive, open to new ideas. I love the concept of crowdfunding, and collective brain. What the pandemic did also was it broke down a lot of hierarchy. If you're still a leader who feels I can sit up there and dictate, you're probably going to lose your best talents. It's just a matter of time. So we have to embrace some of these things. So leaders have to be agile. They have to learn to work together. They have to have that collective brain mentality, very robust and resilient and caring also as a matter of fact. So when you look at culture, every company has to assess and say, what are our values and why should talents prefer us than others? Or if we're breaking into a new market, for example, or we're recruiting from a global market, how are we making our culture inclusive enough for people to feel valued, for people to feel included, and to help them perform at their peak? So I think one of the things also is unconscious biases. We have to take the time to assess what we think about other people, what we've questioned, some of those beliefs that we've had over time, challenge some of our values. I remember when we're trying to put in the flexible work policy where people could work from anywhere for 3 months. It was not an easy decision to have all the leaders aligned because they're like, no, if they're traveling out of the country, how are we sure they're working? I'm like, okay, ding dong. That's a red flag, right? So how are we helping our leaders with challenging their unconscious bias? How are we helping with things around not just training? Because I'll tell you one trend I saw mostly when we went into the pandemic per se, and emotional health and mental health became very important. People were sending leaders for EQ trainings. Oh, just send them for an empathy training. Oh, just send them for this. Oh, training is just 10% of it. The 70-20 requires that you are embracing what you've learned, you're demonstrating on the job, and then you're also co-creating with others. So for new hires, for example, getting them remote bodies, making sure that we had ways of helping them integrate into the way of life, even though they've never seen anybody face to face. Those are some of the concepts that we started looking at. And I feel it's important to continue to challenge ourselves. What do I know? And how has the now of work, not the future of work anymore, because it's now, how has the now of work, how has it shaped my belief as a leader? And leaders coming together to have those conversations like what we're having today. We know some of the things we started were those leadership circles, CEO circles, because no one had the blueprints for what to do during the pandemic. Let's be honest, even HR. But coming together, checking, what are you doing in your organization? What's working for you? How would you handle this? How would you do that? I think those are some of the practices that will continue to help us as leaders.
Absolutely. And what we're doing today, right? Learning from each other, that continues. So that's fantastic. Ollie, over to you.
This is very, one of those where Shweta gives me a gazillion questions and my brain is exploding. Right? and I'm going to pick up on the culture.
You can pick leadership, you can pick culture, you can pick anyone that, because I was just trying to be clever and smart. No, over to you.
A little bit of a subset of it. It's like Axiata has our values are very simple: uncompromising integrity and exceptional performance. But the articulation is something that I really like, which is called the MAD culture. So what happened is, in the current world, we have to get madder, because MAD stands for modern. And modern is the way, like I said, it's the workspaces are changing, but can we make sure that it gives that hyper collaboration spaces? We walk the talk when we say about collaboration, And then the other one that's really, really important for us, the A stands for agile. And, some organizations use the big agile in a very technical way, and some take the small a to just make sure that the tribe, the squads, or whatever it is, take the right practices that show. So we know we have agile at core, agile at scale, but I really think this is something no longer just a framework. It's how do we apply every day? And I think that's really going to be very key. And the third one is digital. So there are people that are going to do this. This is my livelihood. I'm the data scientist, I'm the software engineer. But what's really come about that we really feel is what we're doing is we're rolling out a program called Data Citizen. The idea is that every Axiata employee should be emanating that value. I'm digitally confident, savvy enough, because if the roles are going to be defined, there's a lot about insecurity and fear about losing job this day. The reality of it, apart from all these sexy things, now you hear about inflation, interest rates high, food shortage. So the world is also experiencing an external market challenge. So this is where I'm saying, like, how do we sort of change what we need to do today? So that's the mad culture that got madder. And what I feel, I'm going to touch this on one leadership thing, is all the great things a leader should be. I think there's twofold. One, there is a leader in the hierarchical structure. And what I leverage on are what I call the influencing leaders, my champions that are actually changing behavior without being in that org chart, because the world has changed. And sometimes that leader doesn't even sit in my org. It sits outside, but it can influence our people inside, So I feel that the leaders will still need the knowledge. They must know. You talk about sustainability today. Do everybody know what ESG stands for? Don't quote me just these numbers. What is the impact? And then when we do something, then put back the conversation about how we do our business. So I think leaders have to be not book smart. I think that smartness of what's happening in the world, fast action, and I do believe that there must be clear communication and clarity, because increasingly when I have retention or even departing conversation is, what is your organization's purpose now? And in the 6 months, Ollie, I'm like, okay, so the conversations are richer in terms, it impacts culture. It definitely requires leadership, both by in the organization and the influencing. So I feel this is exciting times. In my opinion, the 6 months is going to be an adjustment for everybody. And nobody can say, I have a stable EVP or something. I think we're just adjusting to the disruption and the economic conditions that's coming up.
That's great. And there is a lot in there, Ollie, and I love the fact that you're driving this very, very centrally. So good luck to you and your colleagues in doing this in a big way in your organization, and look forward to hearing more as you go along. And we're really towards the end of our panel. I'd love Hasham to help wrap this up and just share his perspective on this question around culture, leadership, and the role that they play in driving everything which is great about a borderless workforce. So over to you, Hasham. Help us wrap it up.
Sure, Shweta. I think I'll give it a more tactical perspective, considering Fofo and Oli have really talked about a very high level in terms of organizational momentum that we take to move towards creating this culture. It's quite in point as well for me, because right now I'm doing this work with my businesses. And to Fofo's point earlier, which was the future of work is gone, it's now. We use the analogy of crossing the bridge. And globally, Adobe takes pride in its culture. And what we've followed through from a hybrid work environment was specifically looking at creating some building blocks for you to build the bridge. So think about, as a business, you're crossing this bridge, and the one size fits all doesn't really apply. As we talked about, you say that, okay, this is what we'd like to follow for our sales teams. This is what we'd like to follow for our product teams or support teams. It won't work. Some teams are quite effective working from home. Others would like to be facing customers. So what we're experiencing on the ground is a lot of people have either built the bridges and they're crossing it together. Some leaders are building the bridges as they are crossing it. And some leaders don't know where the bridge is and how to build it. And you need more guidance there. So as an organization, what we're trying to do is give them the building blocks, give them the cement, give them the concrete, give them the bricks to build the bridge, but then leave it to them at a personalized level to figure out how to cross the bridge based on those building blocks. And that's been really important for us. And as leadership team, I think what we're telling our leaders, and in fact, it applies to all HR as well. Like as we get onto an airplane, we all sit there and the flight attendant tells you, put on your face mask first before helping others. So what we're telling our leaders and even our HR team is, as you're thinking about supporting, it's a challenging time for all of us. It's not just the business, it's you individually who's impacted and your family who's impacted. So first put on your face mask, think about, are you ready to kind of support? Then yes. The next thing you do is really look at, how do I lead with empathy? And to put it in practice, digital is going to be the way moving forward, but we cannot undervalue the importance of human connection. So we're asking leaders to work with their teams to identify moments that matter, moments of interaction, moments of peaks, moments of low, where we can have the most impact with the teams to come together and have that human connection and sense of belonging. And then, of course, purpose, to Fofo's point, which is where are we going as an organization? And then lead with empathy. You will have a part of your team sitting in the office where you have 5 people. You'll have a few people sitting in different locations across the globe. Are you only talking to the people in the room, or are you including everyone? Are you creating special privileges for the ones in office versus the others? So practice inclusivity at that level. I think that's where we are saying use a more personalized approach, lead with empathy, and then put your own face mask first before you talk to others. That's what we are doing on the ground.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hasham. And next time I'm on an airplane, I'll always remember that, and I'll remember what goes with it, right? But thank you to all of you, Fofo, Ollie, Hasham. You've been incredible on this panel today, and we've learned so much. I've personally learned so much. And there's one thing that is coming across as a very common theme, is the fact that humanity solves big problems through collaboration. And by building a borderless workforce, actually what we're doing is we're going to solve some of the biggest problems with the most innovative ways, right? And I think that's what excites me for the future that lies ahead. And it's very central for HR leaders to play that role because it's not just about the technology. It's a lot of it is about the culture, the leadership, the aspects of inclusion. And so therefore our roles remain very, very central in doing this. It's super interesting and very inspiring. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Yasmin and the team to take it away. Thank you again, panel. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Wow, that was a really, really exciting discussion. I wish we had more time, as Shweta really said, but thank you, everyone. Thank you to all our panelists for joining us for this session. And Shweta, thank you for moderating it so beautifully. And my personal takeaway again was that collaboration is the key to a borderless workforce going forward. So on that note, thank you once again, everyone. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a short networking break. Do join us for our next session with NASA's Jane Data and learn the art of sketching the future workplace picture with her. See you on the other side. Thank you once again.